All right. Well, it's great to see that there's a lot of interest in the new features coming up in Nagios XI 2012. Our next speaker is the lead developer at Nagios. He's worked on a variety of add-ons and enhancements for Nagios Core, Nagios XI, and Nagios Fusion. How about a warm welcome for Mike Guthrie?
All right, well, good afternoon and welcome. As I said, my name is Mike Guthrie, and just to get an idea for who I'm talking to today, how many of you guys are either currently using XI or at least are decently familiar with it, played around with it? So it's about half and half. So a lot of what this presentation is going to cover is some of the new features in our upcoming 2012 release. We won't get too much into existing features that are in our 2011 version right now, but this will be more looking forward to what's coming. So our 2012 version, we are actually hoping to release the full 1.0 version sometime here in October, pending a few final fixes. We've had it out for public beta for a few weeks now, and had some people here at the conference and other members of the community actually helping us test it out and find some of the final bugs and so forth. But we'll just do kind of a brief overview of some of the new features, and these aren't even actually all of the new features that will be in 2012, but I'm just going to kind of talk about some of the bigger ones and then also some of the ones I had the privilege of working on myself. So just a couple key items. One would be just overall improved configuration management. We did a complete redo of the core config manager, which is based on Nagios QL. That was actually a project that I think we started working on that almost 2 years ago, actually, is when we kind of started working on that off and on. And so that was a pretty major project to have completed for this year. Nagios Business Process Intelligence, or BPI. We have a 2.0 version of that with some substantial improvements for people who need to do business process monitoring. And then scheduled reporting is another key feature that we've had a lot of users ask about. Bandwidth usage report for people using or doing monitoring for routers and switches. A lot of people need to actually track the bandwidth by port and or maybe a managed service provider, or they actually need to track on a day or month basis the kind of bandwidth usage that's being used. So we have a new report in there specifically for that. We have a wizard for bulk configuration modifications. So if you want to change, for example, the check interval on 100 services at one time, you can do that. An escalation wizard. It's a wizard designed to create a chain of escalations. So if you want to have escalation levels 1, 2, and 3, and you want to apply it to, say, 30 services at once, you'll be able to do that. Bulk renaming just allows you to rename your hosts and services while still retaining your historical data and your performance data. Capacity planning. I won't get too much into that because Nick Scott's going to cover some of that in a different presentation, but it's just the idea that it will take your current performance data and actually project into the future using some different mathematical algorithms what your capacity needs might be. And then audit logging will also be a new feature in 2012, which just tracks different activity throughout the interface, configuration changes, administrative changes, things like that. So the first major one is the new Nagios CCM. It's a revamp of the existing core config manager that was included with Nagios XI. This is actually based on the Nagios QL project, and we actually back when we first released Nagios XI, it was based on Nagios QL 3.0. And as the Nagios QL project continued to change to 3.1, 3.2, there was enough overhaul in that code, and we'd actually kind of tied into enough things for 3.0 that whether we wanted to or not, we kind of had 3.0, and we're kind of left with the choice whether to make our own fixes to 3.0 or to try and merge with the existing 3.2, and we kind of decided just for our own developers to be able to work on and maintain aspects of the front end and so forth. We decided to take the back end that was there and then just essentially revamp the front end to match more the rest of what XI was doing, and also if we wanted to make our own fixes or changes or modifications going forward, it would be a lot easier to do that. So some of the things that are features for this, the UI is generally more responsive. We got rid of the pair templating engine, which involves a lot of file parsing, and so we kind of changed how the front end is built, and so it tends to be much quicker to load. We just tried to improve some of the overall user feedback and usability. A lot of people found that with the old core config manager, the initial learning curve, it wasn't very intuitive. And so we tried to add some more feedback with that people, when they did certain actions, they would have more responsive, more intuitive feedback and more human-readable feedback that they could know how to fix problems. Just overall easier learning curve was a goal, and then a couple other items that were just big feature requests we got from users. One of them would be if you have, for example, host-to-host group relationships. If you create a relationship from a host to a host group, but then you pull up a host group definition, you won't actually be able to see that the host-to-host group relationship is there. You can only see the relationships from one direction in the old core config manager. With the new one, you'll actually be able to see them from both directions, so it's easier just to keep track of your group relationships and your parent-child relationships. You can also test your host and service commands from the UI. So if you're actually building your service definitions from the core config manager and you want to actually check and see how your thresholds are going to turn out, or if your arguments are correct, there'll be a button to actually click that you can test it, and it will actually run the check plugin and give you the feedback in the user interface without having to open an external shell. Another one is just as you're creating, as you bring in new plugins into Nagios XI, if you want to extend it, the old way of doing it was that you'd have the core config manager open, and you usually have a shell nearby to be testing the check command and testing the arguments from a shell, while also having the user interface open to build your command definitions. What we did is we actually brought the plugin documentation into the UI so that you can see it right there and just more easily build your new command definitions. We also added just a search feature on all pages. And we also had a way to, if people use, for those who are existing Nagios XI users, if you have static configurations that aren't managed by the core config manager, we actually still have a way that you can actually just bring up those files in a text editor in the web interface, and you can manage them that way as well. And so we'll go to an actual demo video here, and I'll kind of pause throughout and highlight a few features. So this is the login of the new CCM, and this is actually 1 or 2 versions old, so this actually isn't the absolute latest version when I made this video. But you'll see here, this is just the host screen. We tried to maintain the look and feel of the previous core config manager, just for ease of transition for people who are used to the old version, or might be coming from using Nagios QL. Added a few new features into it. One would be try to do a couple things. The old CCM also had a few issues with Internet Explorer, oddly enough, and so we tried to use more of the jQuery library so it would be a little more cross-browser compatible. Excuse me. Let me go back up here. So pardon me. Zip back through. All right, so the host screen here is you can click on any of the hosts as links, and it'll allow you to edit the details. You can also activate and deactivate different definitions from this page. And for some reason now when I'm clicking, it's not pausing. Apologies for that. We joke that we didn't do a live demo because, of course, everything always breaks in a live demo. So we went for a video. So of course, stuff will go wrong in the video too. So. All right, so let me review my notes here where we're going. All right, so one thing I want to take a look at here, like I said, most of the look and feel is similar to the old version. We tried to maintain most of the same form elements. We redid the overlays a little bit so they would hopefully be less buggy with Internet Explorer. I'm going to take a look here. We'll show you the host groups page here. Now you'll see here this host has a host group assignment to the new group. And I just use generic names. This is my test box for my work. I'll pull up the host groups page. we'll access that host group definition, and we'll bring up the host page here. And I'm going to zoom in on this here. Now you'll see here that several of these hosts are actually disabled from the menu. That's because these relationships have actually been assigned elsewhere. This is just to allow administrators to, they don't duplicate their definitions and create assignments from two different directions. You can actually see when you've created a host-to-host group assignment or a host group to host assignment. So as you can see here, there's quite a few different hosts that are already assigned to this host group, so we don't need to put them into this list here. Another key feature is just the ability to activate and deactivate configs. Provided there aren't any dependencies for these items, you can just click the link for activating or deactivating them right from this page. You can also check multiple items here, and with the with checked drop-down, you can, again, if there aren't dependencies, you can actually bulk disable or enable multiple configs at one time. As I mentioned, we added a search feature on every single page now. So if you have a large list of service dependencies or check commands or so forth, it's fairly straightforward to search for them. And then let's see. One of the other items here is that the info icon. Oh, apologies for that. All right, we'll take a look at the blue info icon. In the old Core Config Manager, when you clicked on, it was actually an orange icon. What you got was an enormous amount of database relationship information at the bottom of the page, and it was for most users, found it very challenging to read and actually understand what it was saying, because it would say things like deletion possible and deletion not possible in the same output. So we tried to kind of simplify the output a little bit more and actually kind of highlight basically the important information, letting you know that, okay, does something actually have a dependent relationship that I can't delete this? So we tried to put that into a little bit more of a human-readable format for the output. Also another key item in the previous Core Config Manager, if you go to delete an item and it let's say it did have dependent relationships and you didn't check beforehand, what happened is that you'd click delete, and then it would appear to be successful, but the error message would actually be at the bottom of the page, letting you know that that item couldn't be deleted. And if you're looking at it on a laptop, you wouldn't necessarily even see the message. So we tried to again just put that at the top, let you know right away if something actually didn't work. Tried to make it at least a little more foolproof, and letting you know when something didn't actually work that you tried to do. So, and I'm actually going to go in here and edit the definition for one of these services. You'll see here the test check command button. My check command is check local load, and I've got my different arguments in here. And this actually runs the check command from the command line and gives me the output right in the web interface. So as you're building your new services, maybe you're adding a custom service definition, you want maybe verify your credentials or something like that, or verify the thresholds you're entering in. You can test that right from the web interface. You don't have to have both the UI and the shell open to do that at the same time. Let's see here as we move a little forward here. We'll also take a look at command definitions, because I know for me it was always creating a new command definition in Nagios, especially for somebody who's a new user, can sometimes be a challenging thing to install a new plugin, create the command definition, create the service definition. So we tried to simplify a lot of that process. So when you're building a new command definition, we brought the documentation. This actually populates a select list with all of your existing plugins. And so essentially what it does is it will just run the plugin with the -h flag from the command line. Again, just give the output right back to the browser so you can actually see how this plugin is actually supposed to be formatted. And you can build the definition from there. Let's see here. And one other thing that, again, this is kind of a personal preference of mine, and would be When you're looking at a command definition that might be especially long, particularly like a notification command, it's sometimes hard to read if you're looking at it only on one line. It's nice to be able to see the full command definition. So actually here in the main table, you'll actually be able to see even if it's a very, very long command, you can actually see the whole thing in the interface. So again, just trying to simplify things a little bit for people, make things a little bit more intuitive and easier to use. And then the result limit was also a new feature we added in there, because in the old CCM you had to set that value once, and that was going to be your value for all the pages. Now it's just a session variable, so you can toggle if you only want to see 15 results or 50 results or 100 results. You can just change that right on the fly. It can be useful if you need to apply bulk changes or bulk deletes to 100 items at once. You can do that. And then if anybody utilizes static configurations, the static config files page it'll just give you a select list with any files that are in the static config directory. You can load them, view them, or modify them here from the web interface. So essentially you still have the web UI giving some sort of configuration management without having to do it from the command line if you don't want to. So now the core config manager will not overwrite those files ever. Those are manually maintained, but it is available in the interface for those who use it. Another new key feature for Nagios XI 2012 is Nagios BPI version 2. And some of the key features for that, it uses AJAX updates to continually refresh your data. So if you're viewing your business processes and you want to expand them, and you can actually just see the data will continually refresh without ever having to reload the page. It uses the database backend, unlike the first one, which actually parsed the status file. So it's less overhead for CPU, and then just generally faster performance. BPI groups this will actually be a 2012 Enterprise Edition feature. You can actually automatically generate BPI groups based on your existing host groups or service groups. So if you've got an existing host group that essentially makes up one of your business processes, it's just a one-button click, and a group will be generated for that. Actually, I was just realizing, for those who don't even know what the Nagios BPI is, Nagios BPI is designed to create a group of either hosts or services or other groups to actually emulate one of your business processes. So for example, my web application can be a business process, and that might be made up of multiple database servers, an HTTP service. It requires several different processes and services to be running. You can group those together and assign rules to the business process, and actually monitor the business process as a whole and generate alerts from it and so forth. So, and I'll show you that in the images here in just a moment. So, some of these other features were requested from community users. People wanted to be able to sort their business processes by problem weight, and then group states are now calculated by a health percentage instead of, as before, it used to use just a simple problem count. And then if you want to have BPI ignore problems that are considered handled, whether or not they're acknowledged or in scheduled downtime, you can optionally add that logic in there as well. And then for people who use BPI checks, let's say you monitor maybe several hundred business processes, it uses cached data for the check results. So it's if anybody used BPI 1.0 and you saw the checks using a lot of CPU, it should be substantially improved with BPI 2. So I'll show you here just a video of some of the new features. So what you're looking at here are just two business processes, and I'll zoom in here and expand these a little bit. Local services is just a basic group. You notice that it's in a warning state. It's because the health threshold has dropped below the threshold I've defined for this group. So this particular business process is in a warning state, and I'll expand it down here, and you can see. So what I've got here is that I've got a business process made up of 4 different services, and I have a threshold of 80%, and below 80%, I want to receive a warning about it. And so, so one of these has gone down. I also have, you see this one here with 2 stars. Ping is what I would consider to be an essential member of this business process. So if ping were to go down, the entire business process would be critical. I'm just demonstrating the ability to sort. That one's not terribly exciting because it's smaller. But if you were to use this in a larger business process that's made up of maybe 50, 60 different services, the ability to sort the problems to the top becomes a little more important. And you see here a business process. This is actually made up of, the system testing business process is made up of 2 other business processes. And so you can essentially create a tree-style view of your business processes, and this tree can be as many levels deep as you want it to be. So the idea being that you can just kind of look at the high-level business process and say, okay, is it okay? Great. Or is it in a warning state? Well, let's drill down all the way to the bottom, find out what's causing the problem in my entire business process. Give me just a moment here. So as you can see, I'm just drilling down, sorting down, identifying any critical problems within my business processes. I'll shrink these back down. And I'll go to the host groups tab. And again, this is, like I said, this will be an enterprise feature for our new 2012 version. Our 2012 version will have both a standard edition and an enterprise edition. So for my enterprise edition, let's say I have several host groups that I want to turn into business processes. All I have to do is click on sync host groups. It writes the new configuration for me. I go back to my host groups page, and now I have a selection of business processes. And I can define my rules for each of these host groups now that they've been created. You'll notice here the green check mark I've got right now, I've got it set so that it will ignore any problems that are either acknowledged or in scheduled downtime. So if I don't want to factor those into the health percentage, it will ignore those. And going to edit a group, you'll see here, now that I've got my host groups created, I can define new thresholds for it, set my priority level, and then another new feature will be authorized users for this group. In the BPI 1.0, it was kind of pretty much everybody could pretty much do whatever they wanted. If they wanted to edit, modify, or delete a business process, they could. Obviously in the 1.0, we just I put that out there, seeing if there would be interest. There was a lot more interest in this project than I thought there would be, actually. And several people were saying, I've got a multi-tenancy situation where I can't have these clients seeing these other people's groups. So can we have a way to separate them? So now only administrators can modify business processes, and then you can actually set your authorized users to see certain groups. So if you only want Group A to see these business processes and Group B to see these business processes, you can set it up that way. See here, I can set thresholds, and then over here I would just define any essential members that could throw the group into a critical state if they go down. And that is Nagios BPI 2, at least in a nutshell. And then what you can do from there, once those processes are created, is you can run the BPI wizard. So you can actually set up monitoring and alerting against those business processes. So I'll just call this test BPI. And I'm just going to pick which of my BPI groups that I want to start monitoring. So I'll just check a couple of these. Click Next, and just for demonstration purposes, I'll click Finish. Configuration is applied, and we'll view the details here. I'm going to fast forward to when these are actually have check results, and so now you can see these business processes are being monitored. And then another feature as well, it's a little bit of a crude implementation, but the new BPI check also does have performance data for that health threshold, so you can actually, if you want to see over time what the health percentage was for your business processes, you can do that as well. A couple other reporting features. We've got scheduled reporting, and this will be an enterprise-only feature where if you want to email one of the Nagios XI reports to a manager every morning or every Monday morning at 8 a.m., you can do that. You'll email them a PDF. We also have an executive summary report. For those who maybe already been using Nagios XI, this is a combination of an availability report, top alert producers, and the alert histogram. It tries to just give like an overall summary on one page, basically everything that's happening in the infrastructure today in a single report. As I mentioned before, bandwidth usage is for switches and routers, tracking bandwidth usage by port. And then the audit logging, again, just tracks the user's actions throughout the interface. So that way it's kind of the whodunit report in terms of who's making configuration changes, what did they do, what components got installed yesterday because something broke. It allows you to track that information with the audit logging feature. Capacity planning. This is just an example image of a disk usage capacity planning report. You can pass at different time periods, certain values. You can also look for, say, on a certain date, what is this value projected to be, and so forth. So there's several different things you can do with this. I'm not going to get too much into this report because Nick Scott, I think he'll be in tomorrow. You'll be able to catch his report on data analytics. But so this just allows you to essentially project for things, especially like disk usage and so forth, what are my capacity needs going to be in the future. We've had a lot of users who utilize our configuration wizards to, they might create, for example, let's say they run a wizard and then they clone it using our bulk host import tool. So they run a wizard against a Windows server and then they clone it 50 times, but then they realize they're like, oh man, I have a check interval of 5 minutes for these servers and it needs to be 3. So I need to go back and they either have to go back and change that 50 times in the different definitions. We looked at that and said we really don't want people messing around in SQL, and it's not necessarily a friendly database for people to mess with. If anybody who had dived into that, so we created a kind of a bulk modification wizard where you can essentially pick the configuration value that you want to change. You pick your hosts and services that you want to apply it to, and it will essentially blanket apply that change to all of them. You can also add a contact or remove a contact from a list. And I want to also just point out too, like this is a kind of a repair or recovery tool. This doesn't replace good practices for configuration management. So I generally always recommend people utilize templates or maybe service to host group assignments and so forth. It doesn't replace good practices, but if you do have a one-time job that needs to be run and fixed, or let's say you need to override your template and you need to do it 50 times, this is the perfect tool to do that. And as I mentioned, it's a handy tool to use with our configuration wizards if you, say, ran a wizard several times and you need to go back and change something. I'll just do a quick demonstration of that. So you can see here the wizard. I'm just going to change a single config option. Apologies if it's a little bit small. I'm going to change the max check attempts. And so what I've got here is just my list of hosts. I'm going to add a whole bunch of hosts here to this list. And let's say I just want to give it a value of 4. I'm also going to apply this to several services at once. And I'll pick out a couple more, add them to my list. And I'll save my configuration. So now what this has done at the moment is that this is only updated information in your configuration database. This has not pushed it out to this has not actually applied it yet. So if you need to review the configuration, you can. So I'll go and take a look at my host list. You can see here several hosts have the sync missed. Basically means that the database has been updated. It has not been written to file yet. So it has not been applied into the Nagios configuration yet. So I pull up my details, and you can see here, max check attempts set to be 4. Another one we'll show real quick would just be a simple addition of a new contact. Let's say you need to override a template for multiple hosts. Again, I'll just pick out my list of hosts here. And that's simply all I have to do. Click Save. Now you've got contact applied at the host level. Again, this would be more of a template override kind of situation, not meant to replace best practices as far as using templates and so forth. And then removing a contact, this is one that we had some people run into where they had a contact applied to a large list of hosts or services, they actually wanted to move their configurations towards using a template, and they had their contact defined in like 100 different hosts. So what can be done is that you can actually remove a contact. It will find all of the direct relationships for that contact to both hosts and services, and you can actually remove that contact from the list. So you'll see here I brought up this particular contact, or name is contact, and this populated with the list of all the hosts and services that it's related to. So I can just check which ones I want to remove it from. And so let's say I want to take a look at a different contact. Again, just populates with all of the existing direct relationships. This doesn't interact with templates at all. It's just it would be direct, contact to host or contact to service relationships. Same rule applies for contact groups. All right, so that is the bulk modification tool. Another kind of enterprise level feature we had. This is going to be more for people with larger environments. Let's say you've got an environment where you might have 30 to 50 XI users, and or you're a managed service provider and you want to control notification settings or the format of the notification messages because your company requires those kinds of standards. The notification settings component allows you to deploy notification settings and notification messages to all your users. And so if you want to push those out and actually lock them for your users, you can do that. So it's kind of an administrative level feature that you can use. I think I'll show this video. It'll be a little more interesting to see it than to read the slides. So pull up here from the admin menu. This is notification settings management. So what I can do is I can actually create a template for my notification messages, options, and even time periods. So if I want my network admins to use a certain batch of notification settings, but then I want the sysadmins to use something completely different, I can actually save each as a template and then actually deploy that to each team if I want to. So I'll just pick here an old template that I've made, and then, not I did it again, I'm sorry. Pay no attention to random messages that show up in my interface during testing. So when you run through the form 100 times, odd things will show up in here after a while. So again, this is just I'm configuring a specific host message that I want to deploy to a list of users. I'm going to give it a new template name because I want to save this and use it later. Now, for those who might be coming from Nagios Core, it's important to note that notification settings work a little bit differently in Nagios XI and Nagios Core. I won't dive into that too much, but this is meant to work with users that are created in the Nagios XI interface without extra additional modifications to their notification command or so forth. So you can see here, if I want, I can set this to be the default notification message. I can also, if I want to deploy notification options, I can. If I want to lock them for users, I can. And then same thing for time periods. If I want everybody to use a specific time period, or if I want to push that out to users, I can enter those here and choose my list of users as well. Now, I did give some error output in this on purpose. This will actually let you know if these notification settings aren't going to apply to certain users. If you've modified certain aspects about their contact settings that won't allow this to work, this will let you know. It'll still deploy them, but it will give you a heads up and saying, hey, this contact's using a different notification command, so that part's not going to work. And so it does let you know that. So essentially that is notification setting deployment for the Nagios XI 2012. Another feature we had is that our feature request that we had was users wanted to be able to rename their hosts and services without losing or having to manually migrate their performance data over. For anybody who's using PNP, it's all name-based in terms of how that data is stored. And so if you were to rename your host or your service, you're going to have an old RD file with the old data that would somehow need to be either exported or renamed or so forth when you do a name change. And so we did a bulk rename tool that handles the change in NDO utils, the Nagios QL database, as well as performance data. So essentially, you can update several names at once if you want. I'm going to do this for a list of services. And I am actually going to pick a list of services that have multiple host assignments. And so you can see here these services, these name changes will actually affect multiple hosts. Rats, I did it again. But essentially, it will push a name change out. It will migrate the data over for performance data and historical data for reports. So that way, if you ever need to rename things or change your naming convention, you can do that without losing your historical data. Just for the sake of time, I'm actually going to keep cruising forward here. Escalation wizard. We get a lot of support requests about service escalations. If you have to define several levels of escalations, like say, first three notifications have to go to this team, the next set needs to go to an upper level, and then the next set has to go to another level of people. If you have to do that for like 100 hosts or 100 services, it can be a lot of configurations to do, especially if it's depending on how you set up your configuration. And so we created a wizard to be able to do this in a batch all at once. And again, for the sake of time, I'm actually going to cruise forward and I'll demonstrate it here. I'm going to try really hard not to click past my video again. So I will take a look at this here. I'm going to pick out my services. Now there was a real trick creating this wizard because depending on how you set up your configs, people are going to want this to look differently. Some people will apply a service to an entire host group, and some people will do just a single host and service assignment. And so we tried to do kind of a middle ground on this. And so you pick out your services by config name and service description. We'll click next. And this will tell you the affected hosts for these selections. And then the config name over here is essentially your label for the escalations. This is going to create quite a few escalation definitions. And so it'll be important to label them something that's human readable that you can go back to later and know what it was for. So I'm just going to rename this one test escalation. It's a little easier to read than what I had before. All right, so what this will do is that you can see here on the right, this tells you what escalations are going to be generated from this wizard. We created a forced naming convention to say level 1. And so from here, you pick out your contacts, your contact groups, plug in your settings. So I'm going to just do my first notification at 3, last notification at 5. I'll pick out my options. And then I'm going to save and add another level to this escalation. So what this did is this created these level 1 escalations. And now if I want to create another level here, it's telling me, okay, level 2 escalations will now be created from here. And so essentially you can step through this several times. So if you want to have 10 levels of escalations, you can literally set this up for a large list of hosts all at once. And the thing about this wizard is the way it is set up is that this will actually pass config verification. It should pass config verification every single time that you run this, which is can sometimes be a tricky thing in creating service escalations. So I'm going to save this, apply configuration. And then now you'll see here I've got my escalation definitions. And a nice easy way to search for them is you just type in LV1 for level 1. If I want to pull up my level 2 escalations, I can, so forth. You can also search by whatever config name you gave them. So. And some of the additional components, we had a lot of components that were written during 2011 that are now shipped with 2012 by default, as well as several other new components, one of which would be a custom actions component. It's kind of like a notes URL or action URL, except you can actually add logic to it. So you can actually add PHP code to that action. So it's like, if it's this particular state, show this link. Otherwise, show this link. Things like that. The knock screen, Nagios Operations Center, just shows you an aggregation of all of your unhandled problems. Metrics will compare similar common metrics like CPU load, disk usage across several machines. Mass acknowledgements basically lets you either acknowledge or schedule downtime to a large list of hosts or services at once, and you can pick them out just with checkboxes and so forth. Just for the sake of time, I'm not going to read off my slides. You guys could probably all read okay. And so that's actually, as I mentioned, that's not even all the features that will be in 2012, but those are kind of some of the key ones that we've developed. And at least I did videos on most of the ones I was fortunate to be able to work on. So, but this time I'll just kind of want to open up for questions if you guys have about 2012. Seamus will walk around with the microphone if you guys have questions. Hopefully I didn't put you all to sleep too bad. So. Quiet room.
Could you go over maybe, I happen to have a little privileged information. Could you maybe talk a little bit about the additional wizards? You had mentioned the components, but how also now we're prepackaging a lot of the wizards to come out with the initial upgrade and or new install?
Yeah, with 2012 too, we also, whether you're fresh installing or upgrading, we're actually going to package all of our existing configuration wizards into 2012. So anything that's been Nagios Enterprise has written for configuration wizard, you're not going to have to go look for them and download them. They're just going to come with 2012. It's basically anything that we've written and released. Same thing with components. Pretty much every component that we've written and released is going to ship with 2012. So tried to basically load it up so that right out of the box it's got as many features as you might want or need. And a couple of those I didn't even get to. Actually, Scott Wilkerson was the developer of NRDS is another key feature that's going to be pretty cool for 2012. It's for passive agents and passive monitoring and central configuration of it. I encourage you to check out his presentation if that's an interest to you guys as well. So. Yes, sir.
How does the, if you have an XI license right now, map to the standard edition or enterprise edition?
For current XI customers, I believe if you have an active support and maintenance plan, the upgrade to 2012 standard will be free. And then I believe it's 50% off to upgrade up to the 2012 enterprise edition. I believe that's $750 if you're an existing customer right now.
And then we saw a presentation earlier on Core 4. Is this built on Core 4 or is this Core 3?
This is built currently on Nagios Core 3.4.1. It'll be a little while before everything's updated for Nagios Core. Nagios Core 4 is still, I would say, early beta right now because there's still a lot of commits, a lot of changes going into it. And so it'll be a little while. We're figuring it'll probably be about 6 months or so before we get everything ready to migrate Nagios 4 into XI. So.
And we'll be offering a free 60-day trial of the enterprise features as well.
Yes. Yep.
So people can try it out.
Kind of a question or an enhancement request, which is you mentioned like good practices and using templates and host groups and things like that, but the wizards as they come tend to want to create individual instances of each device that you create through a wizard. Is there any plans or ideas to have wizards that would do things like create hosts and put them in groups and simplify that side of the administration?
Yeah, we've talked about different ways to do that. It's tricky because every end user essentially they set up their configs differently. So for some environments, it does work to do a host to a single set of services, whereas others they've got literally the exact same service being applied to 200 hosts, and so it just makes sense to have one definition. And so, so part of what the wizards do is they kind of ease the entry point for a lot of users, and so. But users for a larger environment, there are other tools. It would be a better practice to actually just go into the core config manager and essentially clone services or apply them to host groups. But we kind of as far as newer users, we would probably guide them towards the wizards, whereas maybe more advanced users, we plan on doing at least more documentation on large config management. Suggestions, like if you have a larger configuration that lends itself more to extensive use of templating or service to host group assignments, we try to outline some of those things. And just object inheritance, you can dive into that stuff pretty deep, and there can be a lot there. And so we kind of consider that to be more of an advanced topic. So we don't have there's been talk about we don't have any immediate plans initially in 2012 for that. So, but that most of our features come from users' requests. So,
An add-on to that is I've seen things about where you can write your own wizards, or there's ways you can do some things. Is that an intended feature, and will there be more coming to make it easier to write wizards in the future?
We do have kind of a documentation and like a sample wizard for people writing their own. And that's something that, especially on like the support side, we try to, if somebody wants to write a wizard and if they ever get stuck on something, we're happy to help people out with that. We've had quite a few users actually, they've got a specific wizard for their environment that's, a real specific type of hardware or something like that. We've had several users actually write their own wizards or even their own components. So we do have some documentation on getting started for those. So.
All right. Should have time for another question or two if anybody else has one.
All right. It's that time of afternoon. It's all good. You guys feel like you're drinking from the fire hose yet?
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Mike.